Can I have some? Yeah, okay. Everybody can. Great. So thank you once again, Amrita. I know it's huge thing for you because you're so tied up with so many engagements, and we're really happy and very honored to have you. Okay, so I'll get started. We have lots of questions and lots of things to discuss. So I'm just going to get started right away by asking you the very obvious question that what is anxiety? It may sound obvious, but I know it's not that easy to answer, and we may have all kinds of wrong ideas. So I want the expert to tell us what is anxiety.
All right. So good morning to one and all. And once again, thank you so much for accommodating me today. And I'm truly excited about this session because I think anxiety is something that's very close to my heart as well. So as much as I have knowledge and whatever I've learned, I think I'll try my best to share it with all of you. But of course, this is more of a discussion. So I would love to learn from all of you as well. I think to start off with anxiety itself, so Sonali, can I start sharing my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I think you are the co-host, aren't you?
All right. Yeah. Oh, yes. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Oui.
All right. Can everybody see my screen? All right. So I think the word anxiety, before I start, can I have like few responses from all of you? When I say the word anxiety, what comes to some of your minds, or what is the first word that, sits with you?
I think it is, sorry, hi, this is Candida Andrew. So I would like to start off by saying anxiety, according to me, is probably overthinking, imagination, unwanted imagination, in fact. Yeah, so.
All right, okay. Anybody else? We can take 2 or 3 responses.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
For
Laura.
me, yeah, it's something which takes lots of space. It takes space, and yeah, and it's stuck you somewhere.
All right. Okay. Can we go with one more response? Anybody who would like to share?
Amrita, there are just reminding you there are quite a few responses in the chat box as well.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Right.
Yeah.
Not comfortable, intensive fear. Right. Stress. Okay. Uncertainty. Okay. All right. Overthinking, always thinking what comes next. Okay. Worry. All right. All right.
Can
Great.
I add something? It's
Sure.
something which concerns the past, the present, the future.
All right. All right. Okay. Great responses. And I think there's someone called Cam. Do you want to say something? You've raised your hand. All right. So okay. When I think the word anxiety comes, the first thing I always think about is, does it always have to be fear? I know the first emotion that immediately gets connected with anxiety is, fear, valid enough. But there are certain misconceptions about anxiety as well, because there is this common line which, gets used quite often, which is fear is sometimes good. It's a stepping stone to certain things. True in certain cases, but then a lot of times anxiety also gets manifested, in different forms. And I think and it could be in the most, even a little behavior that we could see out of a child, but which is never known to a person outside, because the way they might perceive it can be completely different. They could attach a very different meaning, to what anxiety actually is. So just to give a brief. Okay, I don't think I'm able to move my slide. All right. How exactly, what people actually think anxiety is the first thing that came, was feeling nervous or fear. This is this is a majority of the population, that comes forward with, which is very, very natural response, because that's the feeling they've always heard, that, this is what anxiety is, this is what anxiety is. So that gets internalized for them as well. Oh, okay, so if I feel this way, okay, this is what anxiety is. But anxiety could also be in other forms where I'm not able to concentrate. Certain thoughts keep running in my head, and I don't know why it's running in my head. So there is a speed of thoughts that keeps going on in my head. Sometimes I lose my appetite. Sometimes I lose my sleep. Sometimes, I can just see that I'm just irritable all the time. And especially in certain situations, I'm even more irritable because I don't know what's going on. I'm just irritable. A lot of times I also feel like there is this sudden surge of restlessness, and I don't know what's going on, but I can feel that my body is just restless. And I feel that, okay, I'm feeling restless, but I don't know why I'm feeling restless. Uh, I don't know what's triggering it. And there are other tons of, physical symptoms associated with anxiety. But I truly feel the way anxiety gets, manifested outside is the fact that it's only associated with fear, which a lot of times I think adults or children feel that they cannot communicate what's actually happening to them, because a lot of times they just end up thinking, oh, if it's fear, it's just a fear. If I'm feeling nervous, it's very, this one common narrative I've heard, it's very normal to feel nervous before a test, or it's very normal to feel, nervous before something stressful, right? But none of us know what's the intensity of that feeling yet, because we haven't asked them that question. We don't take the time to kind of sit down with them and first understand, um, okay, where is this child coming from, right? Is it only fear, or is there a little more to the story, right? Because we ourselves have associated the anxiety word only with very few, narratives around it. So today, I think I would like to change that a little and say that anxiety can manifest also in other forms. And these are things you can look forward, especially if it becomes a pattern in that, even in adults, I'm talking even about an adult or in a child, then that is something we need to give a little bit of, attention towards. Because child, especially, they manifest in certain patterns. And if that pattern is coming over and over again, then that means it definitely required attention. It requires our attention. So I think that's how I would like to start today about, what anxiety is and what are the common, what anxiety actually is, right? Um, Another thing that came about, after COVID was this scrolling of things mindlessly scrolling things, right? And we don't know why we're scrolling. We're not actually paying attention. That's also because we're trying to avoid some of the feelings inside us that we don't want to deal with. And that's most commonly anxiety. This is one thing that a study came up with. This a habit, it becomes a habit. Today, I see many people, just scrolling through and they're not actually reading anything. They're just mindlessly, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, especially with teenagers or children. They just go into the media and they're just scrolling because they're trying to avoid a feeling that they don't want to deal with. And most often, it is with anxiety that they don't want to deal with. Because also, anxiety is associated a lot with shame, right? Hey, you know what? I don't, why are you scared? Or a lot of words like you're a wuss, or you're a scary cat, or, a lot of words gets associated with that feeling. And they start thinking that, oh, okay, if I feel anxious, that's maybe shameful. Maybe I can't ask for help. Maybe if the moment I start asking for help, that means I'm weak. So there are certain words and judgments they start associating with when the term fear and anxiety comes to them. So it's quite a lot. And I don't think it's just with children. I feel like as adults also, I've seen this. The moment I say, hey, I'm afraid of something, it's also like saying I'm vulnerable here, right? So a lot of times we're not allowed to feel vulnerable, because the moment vulnerability comes out, the first thing all of us we associate ourselves as, I'm not weak, right? So I think a shift of that thought is becoming a lot more necessary right now. So I think that's how I would put anxiety as forward.
Thanks, Amrita. Okay, so we kind of understand now that we have a very narrow way of thinking. Commonly, we have a very, very narrow way of thinking about what anxiety is, or how it looks, or what it does to us. But I think from what you told us, it made us realize that it is something much more and much more diverse in the way it manifests itself. Which we, in our ignorance, some of those signs we do not associate with anxiety. We don't think they're anxiety. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So which brings us to, sorry, go ahead, Amrita, you were saying something.
Also, I mean, just to add on to this also, I think I'm not saying, all the time, it needs a lot of attention, but the moment we start seeing a pattern, and when I'm saying a pattern, I think a particular 2-3 behaviors would associate with one another for at least 2 to 3 months. And if we're seeing it for 3 months, then I think that extra attention is required. Fear is a very common thing. Fear is very valid also. But I'm just saying that it can become, the root could become from an anxiety when the pattern becomes more and more, when it solidifies itself, then that extra attention would be wonderful for a child or even for an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of gets me into my second question, which is, you talked about giving attention, right? And so we would like to know, what are the symptoms? What are the common symptoms of anxiety, which as an adult, whether I'm a teacher or a parent or anybody there, adult in this situation should take notice of? What are these symptoms, which sometimes gets unnoticed and, neglect? What are the symptoms of anxiety?
All right. So now anxiety could have many physical symptoms. It could have many emotional symptoms. But I think the physical symptoms is something that's, I think all of us know about. It starts with your hands sweating, you have the butterflies in the stomach, your heart palpitations, and your pupils of the eye, you start feeling light in your head. I think the physical symptoms is very, very commonly known to everyone. For some people, under the toes, they start sweating. In very weird places, they start sweating a lot, honestly. I think the emotional ones are the ones I think, gets missed out when people do not really know how to, associate this with anxiety. And I think that part is pretty important, because we need to pick few words when, people are communicating about, how they feel about a particular situation. The first thing could be the fact that, are they avoiding it? Avoidance is a very common way of, saying that, hey, I'm not anxious, but I don't want to tell you I'm anxious. I just avoid it. Unless somebody does not address this, okay, why does a child keep, why is he always absent for one particular exam? Or why is this, the child falls sick when that exam time comes? Or it could be not just exam, any particular situation. Let's say, they have a particular uncomfortable feeling to go towards a hospital, and you can see there's a sense of avoidance. So those are certain symptoms I would say it's definitely worth identifying. And another way I think I feel children kind of manifest anxiety is, and I like when you bring up certain statements with them, right? And you can see it in their non-verbal language, their body language. And when you say it, you can see it in the face that something has triggered or something hit them. And the first thing they might do is they would react. This is another way they would, either they'll become extremely defensive because, you just touched a point. They could be anxious inside, but you have said something which triggered a particular emotion for them, and they become extremely defensive because they don't want to accept the fact that they're afraid of it. So defensiveness is another way of, kind of saying that, something is troubling here. So this is another way of looking at it when, I'm not ready to really go into that. It could be something very personal, or something could have triggered it over there. So when I'm talking about symptoms itself, I first want to ask all of you, the concept of exam or test, when it's introduced to them as early as, a second standard or the third standard, right? How do we introduce the concept to the children? Can I have one or two teachers sharing this? How do we introduce the concept of test in a classroom? How are we introducing this concept to the classroom or to the children?
Oh, Naina is also coming. Go.
Anyone who would like to share a thought, or any teacher?
Yes.
Has a
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I'm a language teacher. I'm a French teacher. So, I hate my student got bad marks. So I make sure I explain them, and I really explain them with lots of transparency. I do micro assessment, very little assessment, continuum assessment, to be sure to understand what they understood, what they know. Because when it comes to the summative assessment, I don't want anybody in difficulties. So I'll tell them from the beginning, you will succeed. You will succeed, not maybe all the point, but you will succeed. If you don't succeed like 50%, this is a minimum, I have not done my job. So it's my responsibility to take you, because I have multiple level in my class. I have fresher, I have kids who have 2-3 years, background. So I told them, no worries. I start my year like that. You will succeed at different level, but no one will get bad marks, because I will make sure that each week I will verify, do you know that? We will repeat. So when it comes the summative assessment, I'm talking for MYP student, okay? The lower grade, they don't have summative assessment, but we have to give, an effort grade. And so I really regularly assess many things, observe many things. And I tell them, okay, this you don't know yet, no problem, we will work on that. I use those words, no problem, no worries, everybody will succeed. I show them my confidence that everyone will succeed. But still, I have one student, grade 7 student, it's not a little one. She's extremely insecure. She know more. So I joined that seminar for her, because I don't know how to help her. She has such a lack of confidence. She feel guilty. She know many things. She have lots of knowledge, but when it come to be assessed, when it comes to the exam, and I want to prepare her for the DELF, for the first diploma at the French Alliance of Chennai, she's in panic.
All right. Thanks, Laura. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that in detail as
Welcome.
Well. Now, one thing I noticed, and this is
sorry, can I jump in? I think Nihala has a hands up for a while.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hi, yeah. Nihala. Yes, Nihala.
Yeah, hi.
Nihala.
So,
yes.
No, I just sometimes, like when I want to test students, I tell them, don't worry, I'm testing myself to understand if I have explained the concept clearly. So it's not a test for you, it's a test for me. So you just do the test, and I will analyze whether I am a good teacher, whether I'm able to, explain
I
the concept properly or not. So that they think, okay, it's my test and not theirs. You know, they're
that's
not.
beautiful. I will take that. That's very nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
can we
if
get
I
this
could just jump in for a second, if anyone has any thoughts at any time, please feel free to write in the chat box. And if you have questions as well,
Absolutely, yeah.
thoughts, we'll try and get to all of them as we go along. But please feel free to
Right.
use the chat.
Right. Can we take one more before I go on? We'll do one more. I think Anbu has raised his hand. Yeah.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, this is Ronika from Campus K. So I go with Nihala because even I do say whenever I keep the summative assessment to my children, so I do say that this assessment is not for you, it's for me. How well I have reached you, how well you guys have understood. So this exam is for me. So I just ask them whether I get passed. I mean, this assessment is exactly for me, and in a way, they are very happy to give the assessment. And soon after the assessments, I do assess it, and I don't put a tick or wrong in that. And I do sit with every child and I ask them what you have done it. And being a math teacher, I do say no answer is wrong. Maybe this answer doesn't suit this person. So,
Wonderful.
so
Wonderful.
so in my class, all my children, I don't feel any of the child is lacking confidence. Even if I do a formative assessment in my class, they do say some answer which is not relevant to the question, but still I see the confidence. There is no lack of confidence in them. In a way, I'm happy in that.
Wonderful. I'm very happy. I think all answers were wonderful, and I feel like all of you are making a lot of effort, to not to put that pressure on the kids. But there are few things. I mean, see, this is not an entire place where you can take the entire responsibility where you're making them feeling a certain way, right? They also come from a home environment where even if you're having a very supportive environment in the class, one thing you cannot help is what's happening at home. And they could carry a lot of things from home to the classroom. So one thing that I wanted to stress upon over here is certain words which could, I'm not saying for everyone, it could reach out to them. But the moment we say the word, when we start associating exam and success, or exam and doing well, an exam, and even saying that, hey, this is to see whether I am doing well, right? The pressure is still on. Some kids might not want to let down their teachers. So in one way, the pressure is still on them. They might find you to be a very good teacher. And in their mind, it would play as, oh, hey, if it's a test for my teacher, then she shouldn't feel bad. If I do bad, that means that she's done bad. So in one way, we have transferred that pressure on them. And the moment we start using words as, success, you will succeed. They might not have to succeed. They can fail. What's wrong in failing? I mean, as educators, isn't it also our responsibility to kind of educate them how to deal with failure? Because a lot of times they feel very good, when they do they do well in exams. But I think the challenge starts coming with how they deal with their emotions when they fail. And now I don't know how to handle myself. And now I'm feeling even more anxious. Yeah, Laura, this is not only for you. This is a common thing for everyone, because this is something I've heard in my own classroom when I was a kid, right? So I think when we start using words which, associate something with exam, right? That's exactly, they're taking it as a face value there. Oh, so basically test means somebody has to perform well, either the teacher or the student. So it has sat in their heads that exams is performing well. Now, what happens to the kids if they don't perform well? They would be scared now. Oh, will that teacher start looking at me differently? Or have I set a certain expectation in the teacher's head that, this is my standard? Right? And the pressure starts getting built up, because very common statements that, sometimes when teacher's correcting and, she sees a very, very low mark, right? sometimes, and this is not intentional, the first thing that comes out of the teacher as well is, I expected more from you. Or, hey, I didn't expect this from you. Right? Even positive statements could lead to a lot of pressure for the students, a lot of times, because they end up feeling like, oh, the teacher had such a positive image about me. Now I feel like I've let her down. So the next time what's going to happen, my anxiety is going to increase because I have this on my shoulders now. Like, hey, you know what? I have math teacher, science teacher, English teacher, where I have to prove that I'm still keeping up that, that standard for the teacher because she said I let her down, or she said that I didn't expect this from you. So, or we end up saying, you're more capable of this. We might say it as a very positive thing, right? Hey, you're more capable of this. You have more abilities, buddy, or you have more abilities, man. Show it in your paper. That's a very positive thing to say in our minds. But then in their minds, it could work as, I know, oh, that means she's saying I'm not good enough. She says I have abilities or capabilities. But so she means that I am not good enough now, which means I have to do more. Right? These are anxiety points for them. So even positive affirmations or positive things that we say to them, a lot of times could sit very differently with the kids. It's a pressure. It's a very, it's a very eustress that I could say, but it's still stress that increases a lot for the students. And especially with dealing with a home environment where there's a lot more pressure, it becomes a very difficult combination or a balance for them, to, when they see the paper, all they think about is, I can't let down people. They don't think about, hey, you know what, I'm doing this for myself. I am important here and I need to know where I stand, which is what a test is essentially is. I am evaluating myself. Where do I really stand? Right? But I feel like it becomes more and more about, another person, or especially the person who's giving you a test. It all becomes about, oh, if I do this, there are going to be consequences, or there are going to be judgments that's been thrown upon me. I'm going to hear a few statements that I don't like to hear. So everything is going inside the kids and they start becoming anxious, right? So I would say identifying, or even what anxiety, gets connected, the language which is associated with exam, or how we even introduce the concept of a test, plays a very big role in how they sit with that concept throughout. It doesn't matter whether it's introduced in second standard or third standard, that sets the tone till their 12th standard. Believe me, those are the first words they hear. And they say this, right? Like, children are like wet cement. Once you imprint something, that's going to be there. So we have to kind of really rethink on, how can I introduce this concept of test or exam to a classroom where I'm not building pressure, making the focus more on their confidence in terms of how they are more driven to evaluate themselves. And that's okay if they're in a bad place. It's fine if you fail. Are we really okay to say that? It's okay if you fail. Are we ready to say that? That's my question. So yeah, that's more about how I would leave this platform over here to this. I mean, kind of my take up on exams and anxiety related to exams.
I'm glad, Amritha, you brought up the sentence, the language part of it, because that plays such an important role. And I mean, that was like what was running in my mind, that what are the common things we tell our children that produce anxiety? We don't even understand. As you said, the adult feels it's something positive. When we say, hey, I expected better from you, thinking that it's something, a positive thing. I have great expectations from that child. But how he or she processes that, yeah. So I'm happy. I'm really grateful that you're telling us to look very closely into the language we use when we are talking to children, and how that may, without us knowing it, produce anxiety.
Yeah? Right.
And this entire idea of exam, what is exam for? And reimagining that and telling that, making children realize that it's a learning, like it's a growth which is happening. You're not being judged here by your marks, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So I think then it kind of, after this, the next thing is that, okay, now I have anxious children in front of me, Amrita, whether I'm a parent or a teacher, I know that there are these anxious children who are really suffering. What do I do? Can you give us something that we can say, we can do, some strategies by which we can deal with it?
Right. So I'm going to connect this a little to when we identify certain symptoms, or
Okay.
Now, when we view a child, it could be like, I think exam concept starts from 5th standard, at least from 3rd standard starts for us, right? So if we have an anxious child right in front of us, right? First of all, let's first understand, okay, let's give us some time about how long, or the pattern. It's very important for us to observe this child for quite some time. And then, unfortunately, teachers, it's not completely possible to eradicate anxiety. All right. How much will we try? All right. It's a feeling. And sometimes for certain children, it's the depth of that feeling could be a lot more intense. Right. So, and certain factors, unfortunately, are not under your control. There's a factor I would love to say. Some children are beaten at home because they're not performing well. Now, anxiety could be connected to the fact that I will get a lot of, smacks if I don't perform well, right? So this anxiety could be stemming from a lot of things. Now, when I do have a child right in front of me, I think the first thing I would like to do to that particular child is, hey, how about we have a small talk and remove the child from the classroom? And you must be genuinely willing, to invest that time and space from your schedule to give that time to that child, and they can sit down. And sometimes kids might not be willing to talk to you about it. They might shut down, right? So all sometimes you can do is just be with them in that space, in a quiet space. That's all sometimes you can do, essentially for them. Sometimes the child, when they come to an alone space with you, they might just uncontrollably start crying. And you might not know why are they crying, but you do know that, okay, this is anxiety, but I don't know where it's stemming from, right? So something that you can do with them is, okay, here again, your language and your body language is very important, because children can understand very well when a teacher is saying it out of a duty, and when a teacher is genuinely offering that support. They are brilliant with understanding that difference. Even if you kind of, pat on their shoulders, they know which is a genuine touch and which is just like, okay, she has a next class, she just wants to get over with me right now. So they can really, really understand. They will connect your body language to your speaking. So that's why I'm emphasizing this a lot. When you are really taking a child and you are really giving that time and space, please ensure that you really want to do it for the child, because they would understand that emotion very well. And all they might end up feeling is, okay, she's just doing it out of duty. And obviously, she doesn't want to get into trouble, or she just wants to get over with me right now. That should not be the takeaway, because when you are putting that time and when you are saying that, hey, I'm genuinely here to support you, your language and your body language should be congruent. So when you are with them, sometimes all you can do is sit with them unless they are not ready to talk to you. All you can offer is, how can I help you? I understand that something is troubling you. Let's not use the word anxiety. Please, let's not label any kids by saying anxiety. Let's just go with very simple words. Hey, how can I help you? Or I see that you're troubled, or I see that you're uncomfortable. What can I do? Or would you like to talk about it? Is there something I can do to help you out right now? Right? And the moment they feel your support is genuine, they are going to open up. Or they might just choose to, be quiet, and all they might need is just someone sitting next to them and just calming them down. Or, okay, fine, if you don't want to talk about it, how about we take, breathing in and breathing out for some time. Just breathe in and breathe out. I understand that you're not able to talk about it. You might have your reasons for not talking to me about it. I respect that space. These words are very important. I respect your space. I respect your feelings. But if there is something I could do for you, let me know. Right? So your language becomes your strength at that point of time. And genuinely, I'm saying this again and again, your body language has to be congruent with what you're saying to the child, or else the child is going to shut down even more. So that would be my take on, if I have an anxious child right in front of me, the first thing I do not do is label the child. I first have to be open enough to understand, okay, something is going on. Let the child talk to me about it. And then I can, gain more understanding. And then if required, absolutely required, then you have to take the child to the counselors of the school. Because there are certain things a teacher cannot help a child with, especially if it's a proper, how do I say it? The depth of the anxiety is a lot more than the child requires counseling. So that would be my take for all the teachers. Rupa, I do see your hands up. You raised your hand.
So here is my take. When you emphasize on the word body language, over the years, I have seen and I have felt it myself. If the teacher is genuinely concerned, the body language of that teacher will automatically change. And the children are so very, they have a gift from God. They're so pure. They quickly absorb that, are you in a hurry? Or you have really focused all your energy to solve their problem. Right. I have seen this myself many a times with adults. And when I was a child, I have got this feeling from many of my teachers. And that's the reason I never opened up to my teacher, who were genuinely not interested. So this fact of authenticity, genuineness that you are emphasizing, I think all of us practicing teachers will have to practice a different non-vocabulary cues, The body language is so very important, Amrita. I can't say, because as a child, I got a rundown because of this body language. I never spoke to my teachers. I never felt any of them very safe, though.
Yeah, that's another thing they're going to be associating with also.
Yes.
This is something that is, this is one of my biggest contribution over here in terms of this. I do understand there are certain teachers who might come up saying, I might not have the time then. It's okay if you don't have the time. Or if you don't have time, all you can do is at that point of time, ask the child to sit down, and in your lunchtime or even after the school hours, you can do this. But when you have chosen to do it, I think the biggest thing that you can do for them is be authentic to them, and you can deal with it. Or
you need to give all yours. Yes, your time, your energy, your attention, and they will open up. I have seen most difficult times when they don't want to actually take out their heart in front of you. They do. They do because they reciprocate with your heart.
Right. So yeah, that would be my feedback that would be my genuine take on this. And this is something I really want to emphasize and say to all the teachers.
Yeah, Amrita, thanks. I think it kind of, looking at the time, I think we would definitely like to take in questions from our participants today. And in the chat box right now, there's a question from Leonard Mayer. So if you would, I think, okay. So quickly, before we go on to the question, Leonard, I just want you to wait 2 minutes. I think, Amrita, just tell us how we can create this is, I just asked you something which is for the immediate, right? Somebody is in front of me who's anxious, what do I do? Now, quickly, if you tell us how we can create a culture, an environment where, anxiety is not allowed to fester, not allowed to be produced, let's put it.
Right.
And then we'll quickly go on to the questions.
Sure. Just give me 2 minutes with this.
Yeah.
So, teachers, one of the things I would highly like to stress upon in terms of, whether it's a class 10th or a 12th exam, I see this happening in a lot of schools where PT hours gets cancelled off to get more classes, right? Exercising is extremely important for all the children. It doesn't matter. They need to go, they need to run. PT hours getting cancelled for an exam. Again, you're setting a message over here saying, this is more important than this. All these small things we do only adds on more and more pressure for the kids. They need to exercise, they need to eat well, they need to sleep well. And again, this is something I've already told, the language and phrases which are used even during your revision exams, your mock tests, all these words that are used to a child really sits with them. Because again and again, I would say that they're carrying something from home, and over here they would like to feel that, okay, my teacher would understand this better. And I'm saying this over and over again because failure is also an important teaching for a child, and it's okay if they fail, but we should be at a point to say that to them, okay, you failed, now how do we improve for the next one? It's fine. Or you can even say sometimes failures are necessary, so you can understand your strengths a lot more next time, right? So once when you see, I'm sure all the teachers would know this, in a class you would know who are the kids who struggle with time, who are the students who struggles with organizing time. For them, you can sit with them and organize a study timetable for them, because they might not have that help at home, or they might not have parents who have that time for them to sit with them and see this. So there are poor organizers who tend to procrastinate all the time, and procrastination becomes the biggest factor in why they become even more stressed about their exam. So these are things you can identify very early. Poor organizers of time, poor organizers in general, because you'll see they're not able to arrange their books. Poor organizers. So can we help with a simple study timetable with them? And creating a space for them to talk to you. I think I spoke again last time how I said it. Creating a space for them to talk to you if you feel like this is something that's bothering him, or this is something that's really working on his mind or her mind. And not overwhelming them with too much information. Hey, you know what? Next time is your exam. Please don't do this. Don'ts and do's becomes too much for them to even remember. So the moment I see the paper, I'm like, hey, my teacher said some don'ts and do's, and what are that? Right? So let's not overwhelm them with too much of information. Let's be very balanced and also understand the fact that they will forget, and it won't stay in their mind. All that's going to stay in their mind is, okay, the pressure. So with that, yeah, I think I would like to end it over here. Open for the questions.
Yes, thank you, Amrita. So if you go to the chat box, I think Leonard has asked something. Leonard from Sherwood Hall. Would you like to just, you want me to read it out? I'll just read it out. I'm Leonard from Sherwood Hall, Senior Secondary School, Chennai. A couple of years back, when I was working in a school, which is in a rural village, I found more than half of the students facing anxiety issues, especially in regards to language. In terms of speaking and writing in English, some of them started crying from being bullied as they could not speak proper English. How do we handle this situation? Because some of them were ready to learn the language, but some were not ready. All that they kept saying is, sir, I don't want to learn this as it reminds me of being bullied.
All right. English, I know, has become a very big, the transition, what I see in speaking English, or how English is associated with, I don't know why it's associated with, it's not looked at as a language, but I feel like when somebody is able to speak good English, it becomes very much connected with the personality of that person, right? Now, as a child, if I'm getting bullied about, not having appropriate words, you can also start noticing they start stuttering a lot. And that comes out of, I feel anxious about it, right? So over here, the support system which can be provided for the child is how can we start with small steps and genuinely asking him, not because he's bad at it, because going from a perspective of do you want to learn this language because it's going to help you in your life, right? So, or can we change the perspective about how he is looking at English? Because in his mind, English is a subject that is constantly, he's constantly put down about. But how can we change that? So how?
May I just request everybody to mute and keep it mute and just unmute yourself when you're asking questions. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So that's the only thing I would say. Can we change, that one part of it so that it's a very, very starting step for this person, right? So, yeah, I think that would be my first suggestion. How can we change even the language around English for the student so that he becomes a little more interested to look at it as a language and not as a personality factor? Nitya, do you have a question? I see your hands going up. Nitya, are you there? Okay. All right. Again, okay, there's one more question here. Adding to this question, I have been observing a student in grade 11 who has always been alone, writing something. The child does not talk or open up even to her close friends in class. I have tried many times to try speaking to this child as she looks troubled and upset. The child also approached me to talk about something once with tears, but backed out suddenly. All right. So when a child of a grade 11 is going through, now her tears or her shutdown could be for a lot of reasons, right? The first step I think we can do is if she's not able to speak about it, how about we create opportunities in a class as a classroom where they can write down so that they don't have to express this in words. They can write down in a diary, or a teacher could come and say, hey guys, today closing talk, I was thinking, many of you, how about you guys share your thoughts in terms of certain topics you can take with them? And then you can associate this where she might feel more comfortable in writing it down and sharing it to you. And then, you can see what has she written over here. So children who are not able to come up or they're not able to open up about something in a general class, we can open about certain topics for them where now they might, connect this and they might feel more confident about writing it down and telling it to the teacher. So that would be my, way of doing it if they're not personally able to come. Because in their mind, if I personally go and talk to a teacher, so many other people are looking. What would, they perceive? Or is there some trouble going on with her own gang where she feels like, oh my God, they'll start blaming me? There are too many things, when a kid goes and talks to a teacher, there are a lot of judgments thrown about them. So sometimes we need to be smart and open up opportunities for them where they still get to communicate, but also respecting their space and privacy. Okay, another question is, scoring good marks is a criteria for admissions. Students are bound to be anxious. How do we handle this? All right. I do understand scoring good marks. It's a reality. I do know that that's a very real situation. But ma'am, this is something I would like to ask. You're going to get admitted in a college. Now, for you, what would be more important? Always scoring, or a child developing a skill about how to handle himself, how to become more self-aware and manage himself better? Because admissions will get you it somewhere, but a life skill is where I start learning more and more about myself only after I go through certain difficult point of times. So I'm not saying, the purpose should not be scoring good, but how are we doing that process is very important. For a lot of times, our investment to that child might be a little more. Rather than saying scoring good, can we say, hey, according to you, what is scoring good? What do you want? our purpose is scoring good, but the child also should want to score good, right? And that should be a drive from the child and not drive from the teachers always. So how do we make sure that they are getting motivated? Which means there is something else that we also need to work on and make sure that the drive is from within them, that internal, aspiration to score good is from them and not from the teacher. So the language again can change. So yeah, that would be my take on it. Sometimes peer pressure makes student anxious. How to handle it? Peer pressure, again, anxiety is not something you can completely eliminate, and peers are not something you can completely eliminate from a student's life. But the anxiety part of it, again, you can't say, hey, you know what? These people are causing a lot of problem for you, so cut off your friendship. We can't say those things. One thing we can do is, if the child is willing to talk, giving that personal attention and sitting down with the child if she's willing to talk about it. And peer pressure is something that doesn't really fall under a particular teacher's circle of control, right? So the only thing we can do is observe them, making sure that they are not going into, something that's very dangerous or something that's very inappropriate. That's something we can monitor, but we can't really reduce somebody's anxiety. We can just ensure that we offer that support for the student when she really needs that support. I have prepared a child from grade 7 to be open to scoring effort only, but in grade 10, it's a disaster. And okay, Nithya, I'm not able to really understand the question. I've prepared a child from grade 7 to be open to scoring effort only, but in grade 10, it's a disaster, anxiety issues, lower yourself. What can I do for Feb exams? Okay, so are you kind of saying that you've prepared this student from grade 7? What have you prepared this student for? I mean, I'm not understanding. Ma'am, you're on mute. Oh, okay. Okay, I can just address the anxiety part of it because I didn't get the preparation. That first line I'm not able to understand. See, grade 10, it's a time for board exams where board exam is highly viewed as one subject where there's a pressure from all ends, from the student, from the family, sometimes even relatives who have not even spoken to us suddenly calling and wishing us for our board. These are pressure factors, right? So if you feel that it's a disaster in terms of anxiety, you definitely need to take her to the counselor of the school because it needs immediate attention. And if it's a very low self-confidence, the child is definitely suffering with something inside. And sometimes it could not just be exams, it could be a lot of other factors also, which could be influencing her exams as well. So she needs an immediate attention in terms of a counselor with her. Thank you, Nithya. Any other questions? I can still be here for 5 minutes. That's not a problem. That's fine.
Amritha, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So just I wanted to know, when children are not, they are present in the class and they are doodling, is that a sign of anxiety in them?
A lot of times doodling can be a sign of, when they have trouble concentrating, they start doodling.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when they are not interested in the subject also, they start to doodle. Or when they feel like there are too many intrusive thoughts in their head, which keeps running. A lot of times a child also does that to calm himself or herself. Because for people, when they doodle, they become more calm. Or children could even be doing that when they feel extremely restless and they want to calm themselves down.
What does the teacher do then? Because the teacher sees the child doodling and here she's teaching.
All right. So the first thing you could do is you would be giving the child an activity or the entire class some activity, right? Or you'd be giving some work to the class, right? So rather than calling out the child's name in front of the entire class, you could give the entire class, work, and then you could kind of go and, behind him or sit next to him and kind of ask him, hey, what's going on? Is there something you're not understanding? Or rather than taking up the tone of like, are you not listening to me? Or, is my class that boring? Rather than going from that perspective, kind of asking the child about what's going on, is there something you're not able to understand? Can I help you with something here? And let the child open up to you. And sometimes children might be funny, sometimes children might, use a tone which you might not like. I understand that. But clearly, we are adults here. I think we can be more empathizing towards the child. Clearly, something is there, and he's maybe not willing to talk to you about it. So all you can say is, could you please close that down? And if you want to talk about something, I can listen to you after class. But right now, I think I would like you to finish off this activity. And if you're not able to, you can come, we can do it together, or you can ask me help for it if you're not able to complete this activity. So I would say this is one way to go about it.
May I add something over here if I'm audible? I'm Rashmi. Sometimes, being a special educator, I would like to put in a little bit of my knowledge over here. If the child is doodling, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it is possible that the child is able to concentrate only when he is doodling. So you could probably come up to him and not reprimandingly, but come up to him, and if you are able to find out that he is actually paying attention to whatever you've been saying, then I think he should be allowed to, and also you could appreciate his art if it is really good.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You can appreciate his art if it's really good. And one more point to it, a lot of times children with learning disabilities cannot understand what's going on in the class. So they might be doodling because they're not understanding what's going on. So that means if the pattern is repeated in all the classes, if the child is doodling in all the classes, that means he needs to be assessed for special learning disabilities, specific learning disabilities, I'm sorry. Any other questions I can go for?
Yeah, I think, if there are no more questions, I think we can end the session. But of course, everyone, please do feel free to reach out to us by email or WhatsApp if you have any more questions. But Amritha, thank you so much for being here today and, for taking time out and all of the points that you spoke about how anxiety manifests and what teachers can do with their body language and their attitudes. I think that was super helpful for our audience. So thank you so much. Thank you, Sonali, for facilitating, and thank you to everyone who came here today. I really hope that you've all taken away something from it, and we hope to stay connected with all of you. So please do reach out to us, and looking forward to having you at more future events. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. And I really hope I was able to, answer questions. And this is coming from my knowledge and what I have seen or what I have worked with, with school children. But this topic is a lot more deeper. But let's start off with the basics, which is us being a little more authentic towards our children. And it was wonderful, to have this platform. And I really feel like each teacher over here really has that genuine, genuinity in terms of how you take care of your children. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amritha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.